Today, we're going to look at Luke chapter 24, verses 5 and 6. And as they were afraid and bowed down their faces to the earth, they said unto them, Why seek ye the living among the dead? Why seek ye the living among the dead? He is not here, but is risen. Remember how he spake unto you when he was yet in Galilee. So the angel wanted to know, why are you looking at what has gone before? Why are you looking back instead of forward? You will not find what you seek in the past. You will not find what you seek in your former life. When you commit to Christ and actually take his name upon you, you give up what holds you back from being committed to Christ. You bury those things in the earth, and they're buried. You let them go. They're considered no more. But you know, some people can't help but look back. Why? Why did they do this? Why do you seek remnants of your old life? Why do you seek to look back when you've committed to Christ and are instructed to look forward in faith and move forward in faith? Why do we do that? Why do we seek our old life that we had before Christ when we come under Christ, when it's no longer a concern of ours? We buried that when we came under Christ and committed to being part of his family. We buried our old lives. We buried our old selves. We started anew. But yet we're still looking back sometimes. Why do we do this? Why are we obsessed with constantly looking back and trying to find a foothold in a yesterday that no longer exists? You see, when we commit to Christ, what we were before, that's yesterday. What we are when we commit to Christ, what we become, that's today and tomorrow. We shouldn't obsess over yesterday so much that we forget to live in today and prepare for tomorrow. Why are we obsessed with it? Why are we obsessed with digging up what has been buried and looking back into what wasn't good for us? Because when we commit to Christ, we bury our old lives. We bury our old selves. We lay all those broken pieces of ourselves at Christ's feet. And we say goodbye. We allow ourselves to be born again, restored as a pure, happy being. And we just need to focus on what is possible, what has happened, because we gave ourselves over to Christ. We don't need to focus on what's not good for us. We don't need to focus on digging up the pain we let go in order to follow and focus on Christ. We will not find what we seek. Christ rose that we might be able to let go of what holds us back. Like, really, think about what was stopping you from being your best self and what you let go of in order to follow Christ. Why would you want to dig that up again? Because if you're exposed to those things that made you who you were, what's to say you won't become that again when you're re-exposed to those things? It's a dangerous slope to revisit a life you left behind to follow Christ. It's a very dangerous slope. And when we follow Christ, we need to understand that we give ourselves to Him. We give our full selves to Him. And we shouldn't go seeking things among a life that is no more. When we come unto Christ and commit ourselves to Christ, we give our lives unto Him. And what doesn't work for us and our want to follow Christ, we lay down and bury so that we don't have to keep carrying it, because it will do nothing but stop us from following Christ. We cannot and should not be afraid to bow our faces to the earth, give our vulnerabilities to God, and let go of what holds us back from coming unto Christ and staying with Him. We cannot and should not be afraid to stop seeking what is laid to rest and focus on living our lives, the lives we were given because of Christ, the lives that have been opened to us because of Christ. If we focus on what was, if we focus on the doors that are closed, we will miss the doors that are open. Those doors that are open because of Christ. I mean, He is not here among the doors that are closed, the doors that we allowed to be closed by our giving our heart unto Christ. He is among the doors and opportunities that we are able to embrace because He lives. He laid down His life for us, and He picked it up again, that we might be able to rise from our brokenness, from our struggles, from our incomplete natures, and become better than we are. We were delivered from what holds us back. We just have to be willing to go and be delivered. Christ invites us to be delivered, but we have to be willing to take that step. But we don't do it. Why? Why do we seek our old life, the life we had before Christ, after we've buried it away, to follow Him and pursue a new life, pursue a new self? Why are we looking back to what is not good for us? We don't need to. It's definitely going to hold us back from embracing the life we have with Christ if we're simply obsessed with focusing on what was and what is not good for us. Do you know what's stopping us from being our best selves? Ourselves. We are our own worst enemy. And we are the reason that we cannot grow in Christ. Our inability to let go of what holds us back from being able to grow in Christ. Our inability to trust Him and trust that what we let go will help us immeasurably. What we let go was no good for us. But what we are moving toward, because Christ's atonement enabled us to do so, that will be great good for us. We have to do what is good for us. We cannot and should not be afraid to do what is good for us and take care of ourselves. Like I've said before, that the worth of souls is great in the sight of God, right? You've heard me say this. In order to understand our worth, we have to be willing to face it and prioritize it. And in order to prioritize our worth, we have to let go of what doesn't contribute to it. And that means coming unto the atonement of Christ as we are and holding out what no longer works for us. And being willing to truly let it go and move beyond it and not look back. We leave it buried It's a scary process to bury what doesn't work. It really is. It truly is. But if we focus on what doesn't work within us and what doesn't work for our lives, then we will become as Lot's wife. Do you remember Lot's wife? She lived quite a comfortable life. But then she was asked to give it up because it wasn't a safe place for her to be. Comfort wasn't safe. Comfort was dangerous. And so she and her family were asked to leave their comfort for the unknown. And they left, but pain and sorrow over losing what she knew caused Lot's wife to stop and look back and focus on what she was losing and grieve over what she knew, what her losses were, and not focus on what she stood to gain by obeying the Lord. And she became a pillar of salt. She looked back at her past rather than move forward with faith, and it consumed her to the point of destruction. Lot's wife became a pillar of salt because she couldn't have faith enough to let go of what held her back from being better. And I don't know if anybody has ever seen this movie called God's Army 2: States of Grace. But it tells the story of a young man named Carl, a gang member who was eventually baptized Mormon after meeting with Mormon missionaries. But the night before his baptism, he was told the story of Ammon and how weapons were buried because people wanted to move on from that life. And they wanted to truly move on, and in order for them to truly move on, they had to bury their weapons of war and commit to never digging that lifestyle up again. And so Carl did this. He buried his weapons of war because he was a gang member. He had a lot of guns. He had a lot of hate. But he learned through investigating God and Christ that war was not the way. And so he literally went into his backyard and put all of his weapons into a towel. He put the towel in the dirt and covered it up and buried his weapons and committed to never digging them up again. And sadly, when he was being confirmed a member of the church, his little brother was irreversibly harmed by a rival gang. Because his little brother didn't understand, why are you coming to Christ? Why are you letting go of who you are to embrace an unknown God that you can't see? And so his little brother didn't understand this, and his little brother was so consumed by hate that he continued on a path of hate. Sadly, another gang did irreversible harm to this little brother, and Carl was so consumed by the grief associated with the loss of his little brother that he actually looked back at his life and he unburied his weapons of war. But thankfully, he was so committed to Jesus at this point that he ultimately could not surrender himself back to the life that he had before he committed to Christ. So he did not turn into a pillar of salt because he saw the value in not looking back. And, he chose Christ over being comfortable. Following Christ is not comfortable. It's far from it. It can lead to chaos. It can lead to a lot of things changing in your life, but following Christ leads to growth. If we choose Christ over comfort, we might not be comfortable, we might not be successful, we might not be popular, but so what? We shall grow. We shall become stronger and wiser and more like the children of God that we are. We don't need to be like Lot's wife, who chose being comfortable over Christ. Choosing comfort over Christ will only leave us in willful ignorance, and we will come to understand that in terms of comfort, all things have their end. But when we are committed to Christ, we will see things with new eyes, and we will come to understand that all things through Christ are eternal. All things through God are eternal. And that should give us enough comfort to move through the hardships with grace and ease and a positive attitude. God's work and glory is literally to bring to pass our life, both temporal and eternal. But we're not going to see that. We're not going to see that we are God's work and glory if we are going to choose comfort over Christ. If we choose Christ over comfort, however, we will come to understand that our life can be eternal as well, not just temporal. We cannot and should not be afraid to remember that the worth of souls is great in the sight of God, and that God's literal work and glory is to bring to pass our life, that we might be able to find growth even when it's not comfortable. Growth is not meant to be comfortable. Following Christ over the pursuit of comfort is not to, it's not meant to bring us immediate joy. In fact, it may bring a lot of hardship, but how would comfort, which changes with seasons, how would that make us any happier if we chose comfort over Christ? Please ask yourselves that. Would it truly be comfortable for us if we just simply sat in a comfort zone and forgot about Christ? It really wouldn't make us happy, would it? Comfort zones are not meant to be comfortable. They're meant to keep us from growing. Comfort is actually quite confining. Christ, on the other hand, is about growth. And growth has no confines. Growth helps us to understand that we are valuable, we are capable, because if we embrace Christ, then we shall be brought, guided, led on a path that teaches us who we really are. Who we really are all children of God. We are beloved children of God. And because we are invited to grow through the atonement and through God's grace, we can know that we are valued, because if we weren't valued, we would be invited to stay as we are. We would be invited to choose comfort over Christ and never become any better, never do any better, just stay as we are and do nothing. But we're invited to choose Christ over comfort. Thereby, we are invited to choose growth. And if God didn't love us, He wouldn't invite us to grow. He invites us to grow because He loves us. He sees our divine potential. He sees our worth. He wants to bring to pass our life. He wants us to remember that the worth of souls is great in the sight of God, so we don't need to devalue ourselves by choosing comfort over Christ, because that's what choosing comfort over Christ is. It's devaluing ourselves and our ability to be the children of God that we are meant to be. If we choose comfort over Christ, we are telling God that, we don't see ourselves as valuable. We don't see ourselves as worthy of love and growth. We don't see ourselves as you see us. We see ourselves as sons of men and not children of God. We are not just children of men, we are children of God. We are of infinite worth. It is God's work and glory to bring to pass our life by first teaching us that we need to value our lives. And if we really struggle to value our lives, if we don't know how to do that, if we lack that wisdom, we can ask of God, who giveth to all liberally and upbraideth not, and it shall be given. You know what? Choosing comfort over Christ, it will destroy us. It'll lead to having an absence of Christ in our life, because we'll be so focused on the comfort that we won't be able to see past it or move past it. It will consume every fiber of our being. And we will come to the point someday where we will be looking for Christ in our comfort, but we won't be able to see him. We will be told he is not here, but he is risen to where we chose not to go, because we were so obsessed with finding our comfort. I mean, God and Christ don't abandon anybody. They love everybody. But by our choice, by our decision to choose comfort over Christ, we abandon God. And we stay the same and in place when Christ rises and helps everybody who wants to grow rise. And we are not meant to stay in place. We are not meant to be the same forever. We were designed to have joy. We were made to have joy. And in order to have joy be ours, we need to choose Christ over comfort. We need to let go of what holds us back from embracing joy. We are children of God, but we might not see that. Like, honestly, man is made to have joy, but man cannot have joy unless they let go of what holds them back from embracing joy. Man cannot have joy unless they remember their self-worth and remember that the worth of souls is great in the sight of God, and truly realize that they cannot stay as they are. We are children of God. That is our divine identity. That is our first divine identity. And Christ cannot be found among the comfort. He is not among the comfort. But he has risen, and he invites us to rise with him. In order to do that, though, we have to be willing to let go of the comfort and the confinement that it is. Comfort zones are not meant to be comfortable. They are meant to keep us from growing. So we need to take courage and choose Christ over comfort if we want to grow. That's the only way we're going to grow, is if we choose Christ over comfort. Choosing comfort over Christ isn't good for us. It's like looking back at what was and who we were before Christ. We will end up like Lot's wife, turning into that pillar of salt and allowing our past to consume us to the point of destruction. We cannot be afraid to choose Christ over comfort and allow ourselves to grow beyond the confinement that comfort is. We are not meant to stay the same, so we should not try. We are meant to be the work and glory that God sees us as. But work and glory, it's always evolving. You know, it's always evolving. And since we're work and glory, we're always evolving too. Like, you know that? We all have our timeline. We all have our way and our opportunities as to when we are meant to grow. So what we need to do is look at Psalm chapter 37, verse 5. Commit your way to the Lord, trust in him, and he will do it. So we need to tell God that we are choosing Christ over comfort. And if we don't know how to tell God that, all we have to do is ask God, how can we be sure that choosing Christ over comfort is the right thing? And he will giveth to all liberally, and he'll upbraideth not. He actually gets quite happy when we ask him for help. And by asking, we commit our way to the Lord. We commit to choose Christ over comfort, and God will guide us as long as we continue to trust in him. Our plans, our actions, and our paths. Our desire to choose Christ over comfort is not a selfish desire. It's a desire to grow. It's a desire to tell God that we find ourselves powerless with the lifestyle and the being that we possess, and that we want to be better, but we don't know how. And so we are surrendering our powerlessness to the atonement of Jesus Christ. We are committing our way to the Lord and choosing Christ over comfort, and letting go of the comfort that is confining us from growing into the best version of ourselves. We are the work and glory of God, so we are not meant to stay the same. We just have to want to become better. And we have to remember that the worth of souls is great in the sight of God. And God will give us what we need. God will give us what we need, that we might be able to move beyond the confinement of comfort. We have to. We literally quite have to move beyond the comfort, lest we be like Lot's wife and let it consume us to the point where we are no more. Comfort might be nice for a while, but it will eventually consume us. We might want to get out, but we won't know how, and we will lack the strength. So if you are wanting to change, if you are wanting to grow, if you are wanting to be better, all you have to do is ask of God, who giveth to all liberally. So that we don't have to go looking for Christ only to be told he is not here but is risen to a higher existence. Christ is not to be found in comfortable places. Christ is to be found above. And we need to be able to rise above our comfort, or allow him to lift us, that our comfort, our desire for comfort, doesn't destroy our ability and our opportunities to grow. Being comfortable isn't good for us. We need to grow, we need to learn, we need to change. And we need to love ourselves enough to understand that we could never stay the same. Like, it's impossible for us to stay the same throughout all of our lives and be happy. Man is meant to have joy, and in order to have joy, we must be willing to become better than we are.